Hello and welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Buy Round Interview Show. Now today we have got a lot to get through with a very special returning guest. A lot has changed since not just the last time we had this person on, but also featured in the round table discussion. None other than current interim. This is where the English language can trip you up because there's a big difference between being an interim and an intern.
Yeah, it is a big difference. I wish I was still an intern. I've got a little bit beyond those years, I can tell you.
Yes. Well, it's none other than Shane Richardson.
Hey, guys.
Current West
Interim
Tigers,
CEO, West Tigers CEO.
Yes, that is confusing. But before we get into how this role started, we've been looking to get you on for a number of weeks. Yep. It didn't all go to plan though, Richo. There's been been some personal news happening your way. So if you bring me completely up to speed for a bit of a recap of what exactly happened.
Well, you know, I'm a diabetic too. Been since 1997, so I've always had to deal with it. And but you know, I had a little thing on the bottom of my foot which became ulcerated, and sort of overnight. Well, not overnight. It was virtually one afternoon. It just went bang into my foot, and I had blood poisoning. I was really ill. I had to be rushed to hospital. And when I went into hospital, I said, "Look, you know, we're going to have to. It looks like we might have to take your foot off." And so I'm just letting you know that that's the case. And I'm going, "Oh yeah, this is fantastic." So I was sort of by myself there. Over the next few days, my brother and everybody flew in, but. At the end, anyway, I went under the knife and it was a fairly big operation. And at the end of it, though, I come out, I looked up and he said, "It's your toe. We only need to take your toe." I said, "Thumbs up for that." So, but I spent 2.5 weeks in hospital, and then I spent about another 3 or 4 weeks with daily nurse care at home for my foot, and then sort of I had to carry around. I look like an ambulance. So I had to carry around a what they call a vacuum pack and a thing pumping sort of good stuff into my blood for about another month, which was a pain because you couldn't shower, you couldn't. But you know, and then trying to run the West Tigers in the meantime. So yeah, it was a tough time, and I was lucky I had great people around me.
Most importantly, fully recovered.
Yes,
now.
Fully recovered. Today's the second day I've had a shoe on, so I'm on fire now. I can tap dance and do whatever you want to do, and run away from fans and news limited. So I'm looking pretty good.
Firstly, how was running a football club from inside a hospital, and how did you keep this away from the press?
Well, that's sort of what we're trying to do at West Tigers is, you know, cut out the leaks and cut out the things. It was a good example where we were able to sort of secure that. And but no, I'd have meetings with my CFO on one day, and next day I'd have meetings with the football management about where we were going. Benji came in and sort of things like that. So we just worked our way through the agendas. And the beauty of the world today is you've got mobile phones. They don't stop you in hospitals with mobile phones anymore. So no, we got through the period. We got things rolling, and the things we needed to do, started strategic plans and everything like that. So yeah, it was a funny period. And then even when I came out, in mornings I had to do wait to get my dressings changed and everything else, and then in the afternoon I go into work, and then vice versa. I went on for about another month. So, but no, it's all back to normal now. So all we got to do is start winning a few games.
Be nice.
Very nice. I tell you,
it's just as simple as that.
Simple as that.
Before we get into how it all transpired, I just want to ask you, we spoke on the round table in and around club governance and some of the frustration of the fans. Now, it's my understanding that there was an independent review carried out looking at the club governance and culture of the West Tigers team, instigated by a number of fans that had signed a petition. So,
well, it wasn't just that. Just clarify that the fans did sign a petition, and that was really good and everything else. But the reality was that the Holman Barnes group, which is West Ashfield, and that they really made a final decision that they needed to make real changes in the club, and got an independent review done. When the independent review back, I'm not sure they realised what it was going to be like. And to be fair to them, they reacted to it straight away and made the changes. And I've said this a million times, but in my experience in rugby league, turkeys don't vote for Christmas, but this board did and gave up their blazers. And I don't think West Tigers have been in the position they're in today without them doing that.
Does this tell the fans that they do matter, though?
Yeah.
Like the fans were part of this. I know I speak to fans and they feel this level of frustration that their voices aren't heard and their voice doesn't matter and their opinion doesn't matter. But does this? Well, there's a couple of things. So there's arguments amongst the rugby league fan community that they're a protected species. Does this put them on notice? But also, does it say the fans you do matter?
Look, when I took over South, the borough were a very angry group of people, really angry. They weren't the friendly, waving, smiling people you're seeing today. And I made my business to sit down with them and say, hey, look, I understand your anger and I understand all that, but we're never going to change the club unless we're going to get all behind the club and support it. So if you can't transfer your anger into something positive, we're never going to get ahead. By the end of the time, the borough were a magnificent part of the club. On presentation night, they give out their own award. On presentation night, deliver it to who they think the player of the year is, and it's not very often different from what the coaches thought. But my point about it is, I've always recognised that fans, or members in particular, and they're all members because I made them become members, otherwise I wouldn't talk to them. But at the end of the day, they took that on, and it's the same here with this group. I mean, you've got to remember that probably some of the people from Home and Barnes were mad fans too from West Tigers, and they probably were that fed up to the end of the day. But certainly the outcry from fans makes a difference. I've met with that group recently and I said to them, look, I'm all about supporting fans group. I think you should change your name from the Ambush. I don't think that's a great name for a fan group. But at the end of the day, I'm all for supporting fan groups. But at the end of the day, you've got to be positive. You'd have to agree with everything. You'd have to write or agree with everything. But at the end of the day, you've got to have a positive outlook about trying to get us towards being the club you want us to be, and more importantly, we want us to be. So yeah, there's a journey they need to come on. And if you listen to them, there's some. I always say you've got input. You've got input without final say. And I say that to most of my staff too. But at the end of the day, I think it's important that you actually listen and that you communicate to them. Now, some fan groups will drop away because but the real fan groups will actually understand that and work forward and become members. And I actually get letters in now from people saying, my members, can you answer this question? Because I've made the statement and it's true. I won't answer any questions from fans. I'll answer every question from a member.
Ah.
If you're a member, if you come up to me in the street, Richo, what's going on there? So what's your member number? Oh, I'm not going to. If you give me your member number, I'll talk to you for the next half hour. Because at the end of the day, if you're really committed to the club, you become a member. Simple as that, in my opinion.
So that's the way to...
Yeah, really buy into the club and really invest in the club. And when we started South, we had 8,000 members. We had about $450,000 worth of membership money. We're now, I think they're now in a vicinity of $5 million, 32,000 members, and we have the same message. If you're a member, we'll deal with you, and you're the people we want to talk to and want to grow. Because our membership is terrible at the moment. It's low. I've made a thing on the website about it. You know, we've been clearing 20,000 when we really only got about 8,500 paid up members, which is the lowest in the NRL. And I wanted to declare clearly that this is where we are, so we can actually grow up in membership. And because I think you've got to be honest and transparent with your fans or members or whatever you say. And if you are, they'll come on the journey. If you're not honest and transparent, they'll never come on the journey. And that's what I want to be with fans, if that's a long, elongated answer to the fans having a say.
Yeah, I think speaking to certain people that maybe they're not West Tigers, certainly not West Tigers members, but they're not West Tigers fans, but they're fans of other clubs, and they felt they had hope that arguably poor administration or protected like species that always seem to be in and around certain football clubs can be moved on, and the level of frustration at the Tigers has been high for a number of years, and like it has been at some other football clubs. And I think it gives these fans hope. But
there's no doubt about that. But there's no question mark about that. And that's the whole thing. I say to them all the time is that we want to create a football team. When you go along to watch them, you hope you can win. I'm not sure that's been the case for the last couple of years. You want them to win, but your hope's not there. And we've got to create hope for them. But you're right. But at the end of the day, you know, people talk about players not performing. And if players not performing, you call them in, you talk to them, you say this is not good enough. If you're honest about it, they've got to perform it. At the end of the day, if they don't perform, their contracts they don't get renewed or whatever happens with them. It's the same with football administrations, though. You've got KPIs to win. The winning football games is one of them, but there's a whole lot of other ranges of KPIs you need to do. And if you're not meeting those KPIs and you're running last every year, then you expect to get to moved on. I mean, if I had in my 30-year career and I took over every club, I was involved with every one of them. Were on the bottom of the ladder. And we all went through to either grand finals in Super League or premierships, Penrith and what's the name. But it took years on the way through to get through to that. But if you weren't meeting the KPIs on the way through and raising the level every year, you expected to get sacked. Now, I never got sacked. I wish I had in some ways because I've seen some of the payouts people have got over the years, and I wish I might have another little unit somewhere. But what I'm trying to say is it's just normal football procedure that you're held to account by your members, your fans, your boards, and your players at the end of the day too about what you're doing as a club. So to get the push sometimes it's I've appointed a fair few coaches and I've had to sack a fair few. Most of them are still friends, by the way. But at the end of the day, it's the business we're in, mate. I always say to people, it's one of the people talk about being a business, but every Sunday you're judged. Every Sunday night, well, I always say we used to play Sundays as Sunday night you're judged, but every weekend you're judged, and there's a million Monday morning quarterbacks from fans to members, and they're all there bouncing away in your ear. I've always found, though, that if you're really going to grow a club, the Monday mornings when you lose, you've got to be your best mornings. Not when you win, everybody's jumping around and screaming. The Monday mornings when you lose, you've got to, your management team, and you've got to come into the office, not being fake, but saying, right, you know what? Wipe that out, get on to the next stage. And if you don't do that and you keep going backwards, well, you expect the repercussions.
Yeah, I guess you find out a lot of people when you lose.
You do.
You find out a lot about them. Yeah.
Much more.
Easier to get a read on people when they've lost.
Correct.
When everyone's smiling. So it's great.
Over the years, my 30 years of doing it, I've had to teach the board how to be football board members, because they don't understand the sanctity of a dressing room after a game when you've lost. The players want to see you there when you've lost. More than when you win. Everybody's there when you win, but they want to see what your reaction is. If you're over in the corner whispering at each other, they think you're talking about them. James, you didn't play. They see that for James Graham, he's been paying too much money. But you may not be talking. You might be talking about your weekend, but that's what they think.
Yeah.
Because when you lose, your head's down, and last thing and I said to all the boys, that's when you go around as a chairman and shake their hands and say, mate, we'll come back next week. We'll do it better next week, and mean it. Because when you first do it, you don't mean it because most people are such mad fans. But the reality is a football club is about everybody buying into this together. So when you lose together. And when you win together. You can't separate the both and on a day-to-day basis. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I agree. It's we're all in, no matter the outcome. Yep. Just with this role at the Tigers, how did it all transpire? So this review has happened. Was the communication prior to this review, or was it?
No, I knew the review was taking place because Tony Crawford and I worked together in the NRL. He's the one who did the review. He was the CFO at the NRL when I was there. So I knew the review was taking place, and I said to them, guys, whatever you do here, because I sort of had thoughts and opinions to give them about what my thoughts. I think that was an independent review, not from me. And I didn't expect to be the CEO or anything like that. But I said, you've got to change things from the top, not the bottom. And you've got to make sure there's true corporate. I said it on this review. The first thing you need in the club and on our panel, first thing you need is true corporate governance. Then you need that your staff and CEO do the job properly. Then you need to, make sure that the coach and players are accountable to the group run through. So I said, unless you're going to start changing that at the top, everything down below is going to be irrelevant. And it is, because true corporate government means you actually set the club up as a truly operated corporate business, and then you allow your staff, your CEO and people to do their jobs. And unless you're going to do that, you're just wasting your time. And so, I never thought for 1 minute that they'd do it. And I never thought, as I said, I didn't think turkeys would vote for Christmas. And when they came back to me and said, look, we'd like you to be involved in the club, we're going to do this and this. And it was only a few days before they actually made the decision to do it. And I said, well, if these things are put in place, and I need to see them in place before I'd consider it. But if they're in place,
what were you looking to see?
I wanted to see that they were going to change the board, that there were going to be independence in the board, and that there was going to have an independent chairman.
What do you mean by independent?
Well, but that he's not part of the West or Balmain group, or so actually you can sit there and make decisions that are independent of what, and that the board was going to be independent, because the board now.
So are they fully independent?
No, it's not fully, but what you'll have is you've got a one representative from Balmain, one representative from West's Magpies, one representative from the Holman Barnes group, who are the major shareholders, 90%. Of shareholders, and then 4 independents.
So there's
the Barry's one of them, and we'll be appointing 3 more over the next 30 to 60 days. And so you'll have a board that's truly independent, not a board that's going to, worry about the colours in the socks or the colour, but really, and the people on the board, that's what's been happening sometimes in the past. But but a board that's actually going to make some really good decisions about how the club's going to grow, and there's some big decisions to be made over this period of time. If we really want to be great again, but they are truly going to have input into it and not be based around. And it's nothing to do with football knowledge. It's to do with whether it be digital or marketing or different sort of skills that they'll bring to the board, like all quality boards have. So that was the process. They made that change. I said I'd do it for an interim period and see how it went, and then we talk about whether it was going to be longer after that. And that's the stage we're in at the moment.
Can I ask who you think the other board candidates will be?
Because I think
private?
It is private, but it's not that. The board's putting down a whole lot of critical things that a board member should be in the proper board, which is done through a process. And once that process is finalised, then we'll go into the marketplace, and then people will apply. There's a lot of people who already applied really high profile people to be on that board. But they may not be the skill set that we need to take the board forward. You understand what I'm saying there? So I think that what we've got to do is make sure that those 3 extra independents. Barry obviously gives us an enormous thing in the political world, and already has been hugely advantage to me. He's used to corporate governance and what's going on there. The other 3 people have got a value add to what the other 4 members of the board are doing. So that's a decision made by the board, not by me, over the next 30 to 60 days.
So you like what you see an opportunity. What do you walk into? What's the situation that I guess you inherit?
Yeah, it's funny. I walk in there and everybody thinks, right, football team's rubbish. They're not winning games. This is this. When I walked in and had a look at it, there's a couple of things you really need to run a club. You need corporate governance, and I think true corporate governance, and I think that's what they're doing. You need strong management who'll make decisions about what's going on. But more importantly, the other things you need money. Now, we're backed by a group, the Holman Barnes group, who are undoubted. And they put the money in losses over the last couple of years. And it's not that they're sick of putting the money in, they're sick of losing and putting money in. So money's really important. You've got it. Magnificent facility. Have you seen Concord?
No.
It's as good as any facility in a sporting club in Australia. That's a big call, but it's a magnificent facility where offices and ground and training. So there's no excuses. We've got 9,000 juniors. South have got 3,000. Canterbury have got 3,000. Penrith have got 9,000. Parramatta got 7,500. We've got this magnificent junior base, and despite what our News Limited friend said the other day about our depth, we're in the grand final of the under-16s this weekend. We're on top of the under-17s at Harold Matts. We ran 3rd in the under-18 competition, and we're 5th in the under-19 competition, which is SG Ball. But 5 of those players who are eligible for S3 Ball are playing up high, including Gail Lachlan, who played on the weekend. So we've actually decided to blood those kids up higher. So my point about it is there's a great development ground there for us to draw on and be part of. So that's a really big plus for us. We've got a really large supporter base that's not polished in the sense of that hasn't been supporter base hasn't been turned into membership. So if you might have only X number of members, but we know we've got probably 300,000 people out there who could be potential members.
Yeah.
So we're in a world of being in a lot better position than we thought, where the football team's nowhere near. It's probably 80% of the way there. We've got Benji as a coach, and Benji's this and Benji's that. My experience with Benji over the last 2.5 months has been nothing but positive. He's a new coach with new ideas and new thoughts. I think you need it. But he's certainly got the players on side and responded to them. We've managed to recruit well. Olam's going to be good for us. Luai's going to be great for us as well. So we're not in a bad position, but we've got to start winning. And that doesn't happen overnight. It's a process.
It is. It certainly is. a process. There's a couple of things that you've touched on there that I really would like to dig into a little bit deeper. Well, independent board, great. That certainly helps. I think there was always talk that West Tigers off the field are doing really well financially, never an issue. Is that?
Well, finance is not an issue because we've got huge backing.
Because of the huge backing.
But, in this day and age, when you're getting $17.5 million from the NRL, ridiculous how much money we get from the NRL.
Grants, yeah. So you should be, yeah.
There's no way you should be losing 2.5 million or even more in some other clubs' cases. Because
it is strange, that, isn't it? That
because you've got to stand alone without. If you've got somebody sitting there writing a check, I've said it on your podcast, Bree, this is nothing new. If somebody's there at the end of the year just writing out a check, how hard are you trying to make sure they don't have to write out a check? My attitude's not that. My attitude, I don't want you to write out a check. We're never to check, it's ours. So despite Russell being there, it was a really hard-run business, which is very profitable now. They'll probably make over $4 million this year in profit. My point about it is that you need to make, because if you run the business efficiently, lean, really work hard, that's the same principles you're running a football team has. You want them working hard, lean, mean, fighting machine, and it's the same over here. And if you're not that over there, they see it. And there becomes a sloppiness in the whole organisation, not just in football. And so, look, we've got mountains to climb in membership. We're probably the bottom of the ladder in membership. Our corporate's certainly nowhere near where we should be on what we should be doing. Our community program is nowhere near what it should be, which is a major focus. We've just appointed Sean Mielenkamp, who's done a magnificent job with the Central Coast Mariners on a shoestring budget. He's a great operator for 9 years. I don't think there's ever been an administrator in my time. You were at Wigan with some great administrators over the years. St. Helens. Sorry.
Jeez,
mate.
Come on, mate.
Yeah. But, I mean, on Saturday they stopped the game for at the 9-minute mark because that's the 9 years he was there. The fans stopped the game.
Yeah, wow.
And gave him a standing ovation. Now you tell me where that's happened, and he's taken over our general manager of our community, and all that sort of stuff. So he's really heavily, and that's what we want to grow. The push to Southwest, mate. Southwest is massive. We're opening a new office out there in the next couple of weeks. We've never been based out there before, but we were based out with 7 people in the middle of Campbelltown. And, mate, that area is the largest growth area in Australia. So there's huge potential and possibilities for us to grow there. So there's nothing negative about where we are, but we're on the bottom. The good news is you can only go up when you're on the bottom.
Well, I was going to say, so often with joint ventures that there's an issue of identity and,
correct.
You look home grounds, training bases.
Yep.
Everyone wants to be equal. Well, if you get 4, we get 4. You're not taking our home game off us, or we've got to play at Combank or a core. But if the Tigers are going to grow, are they going to have to leverage their West's identity and be more?
It's not the West's identity. It's funny,
Like, are they going to have to adopt more of a? Adopt more of a West identity.
Well, no, I don't think they've got to adopt more of a West identity. They've got to adopt a West Tigers identity. We've been 25 years as a joint venture. I don't want to talk about West and Balmain, and we can go. And it's like we're getting really heavily involved with the players about the West Tigers alumni, which has 276 people played first grade and have a number. I want to build the alumni. The other ones are great. I want to go on. But the reality is the more you focus on West Tigers, now, who knows where we'll play? Because I can tell you this, that we'll play at the most commercially viable ground for us to grow to 30,000 members and to grow to the crowds and corporately and all the rest of it. And, and at the end of the day, the Leichhardt and Campbelltown councils have got to understand clearly that, we're only there for this year and that, we need some assurances about, you cannot, we could fit, we've got 300 corporates on Saturday night. We could fit 600-700 in there. So we couldn't fit. We need to fit. We could sell 700. My point about it is that's double the amount of corporate you're getting in. You can only fit 17,000 people into the ground. Well, I'd like to think we're averaging 17,000 people every week. Or 20,000 or 25,000. What I'm trying to say is, mate, the West Tigers identity has the spread for us commercially has got to be out and taking into consideration the development areas of Campbelltown. That's why we're setting an office up there. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to play there. We'll play where we believe we can grow the club to the and the West Tigers club to the most ability.
Does that then look at the potential of more games at Campbelltown? And
well, look, over the next, we've just put a strategic plan which will come out next week, which is signed off from the board this week. And a part of that talks about where we're going to play. That's a decision we'll make based on the economics of the club. Where we've already got a base where we train at. We'll be at Concord forever.
Yeah.
So you haven't got, like St George, you're training here, training there. We've got one base. But, Leichhardt is just nowhere near the standard. It might be the eighth wonder of the world, but, even the sort of the pyramids get cleaned from time to time and upgraded. And my point about it is we can't continually we can't grow our membership and fan base at a large rate if we don't provide the facilities they want. For females, for kids, and all that sort of thing. So we're going to make decisions over the next period. I'm not saying where we will or won't play at this stage because we haven't done enough research in it, but it's clear in the strat plan that we'll be making calls about what's best for the club for the long term. And we've got the largest growth corporate area in Australia, in the southwest there, through Camden and up through that area. We're mad if we don't, and that's why we're basing an office out there. But where we play, all the great clubs, mate, let's be brutally honest. Let's look at the great clubs in the NRL. Now, where does Melbourne play? Out of a magnificent stadium. Where do the Roosters play? Where does South play? Where does Parramatta play? Penrith's getting a brand new stadium built for them. My point about it is you cannot grow what your Suncorp, North Queensland, Gold Coast. You cannot grow your business if you can't provide for the members and fans the environment they want to be in, and that's not necessarily the environment that traditionally you want to be in.
Yeah, and you can't please all the people all the time. Is there a potential for all West Tigers home games to be played in Campbelltown?
I think I'm a great believer. For example, at South, they play 3 games away because they spread the brand.
Yeah.
And I'm a great believer in that.
Any home game here in Sydney? So you get 12 home games a year.
Yes,
so maybe 2 on the road, 1 at Bathurst. I think there's.
Well, we won't be going to Bathurst, but that's Penrith go to Bathurst.
Oh, sorry, not.
No, we're playing at Tamworth, but we won't be playing there after this year.
My apologies. Say another area of New South Wales, but for the
or the Magic
or Magic. Say 10. The 10 home, a minimum of 10. Is there a potential for West Tigers to play those 10 home games at Campbelltown Stadium or maybe even Combank Stadium?
Well, I don't know about Combank. It's a home of Parramatta.
But
it's
is
funny.
It though? Because they don't. That's a community stadium, is it not?
Yeah, no, well, it is a community stadium, but it's what you've got to do, mate.
Like it's not in their assets. It's not Parramatta's assets.
No, it's not.
And like similar to Allianz, I don't know.
But I moved south from Moore Park. It was huge. We only ate that, and they whinged. This wasn't right. We couldn't do this. Now, if you had a vote of people where they wanted to be, they'd say they're there because the 30,000 members come from out there. They're not based around here.
A core.
Correct, in the west of Sydney. They've got massive fans for South Sydney in the west. They've got offices in Liverpool and Campbelltown, South Sydney. I mean, at the end of South cares. So what I'm trying to say to you, though, is you might upset a few people, but it's got to be what's best for the growth of the club and to attract new members and people. Because if you're not thinking that way, you're just going to continue to go backwards. So my answer to your question is this. We will take the games where we believe we can grow the club most successfully. If we were able to get support from to create a stadium that we could do that in Campbelltown, we'd look at that. Certainly, Leichhardt, I don't think will ever be that way because of the situation where it is and the area it's in for growth, etc. Itself for the expansion of the ground itself. I love the ground as far as Leichhardt, as I said before. But at the end of the day, how are we going to grow this club? No one ever believed South would leave Moore Park. We did. We've grown it into the club it is today. We're at the bottom of the ladder, and I actually said to the guy at the time, which is quite interesting, because when you're on the bottom of the ladder, people don't actually treat like they're on top of the ladder. And I said when we left, they said, you'll never leave Moore Park. This is where South, this is their home. I said, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll stay here at Moore Park if you give me the same deals the Roosters are on. You give me their deal, sign off in writing that's the true deal. I'll say, we can't do that. They couldn't do that because they were never going to give us a deal. We were second-rate citizens, and we moved, and they treated Zachor as a first-rate citizens overnight. And so and we grew from there, and it was hard, and playing in front of 9,000 people against the Gold Coast and 7,500. But at the end of the day, we also played in front of 56,000 against Canterbury in a semi-final, which is the record of all time for a semi-final in NRL, and 58,000 against the Roosters in the last fixture, the largest fixture of all time against the Roosters in 2013 in the last game. My point about that, you're never going to be able to do that Leichhardt. You're never going to be able to do it. So we need to have a ground that we can actually satisfy our fans, fit the amount of people, and meet what our needs to be to compete with the big clubs.
Where do you envisage that being then?
I can't say that yet, and I'm not trying to fluff around it. It's funny, like we're having a lot of conversations. I'm talking to the Campbelltown Council, I'm talking to the Leichhardt Council, I'm talking to all these people. You don't just make those decisions off the top of your head. You've got to get all the stakeholders involved and talk them through it. It starts with a strat plan and announcing what you're doing with that, which we've done, and then it starts the conversation about where you're going to go, and it's how much these areas really want you. Because at the end of the day, we'll always be in Campbelltown. We'll always be running strong community things in schools out there with our new community, with Sean and everything else. Sean's going to be moving. All those things will happen. We'll move the business there. But where we play is something which really around about how do you attract spectators, how do you get members, and how do you grow corporately. Simple as that.
But a whole heap of emotion as well.
There is a heap of emotion, mate, but there is a heap of emotion, but they're not silly.
No.
Fans aren't silly. They understand. I mean, we're not talking about.
But you know, I don't know if fans do. Like, I'll give the example of Canterbury Bulldogs. So, fans love Belmore. They love going there because that's the hill where I went with my mother or my grandmother or father, grandfather, and there's tradition, there's history, there's moments of life that are long lived with them.
And as long as Canterbury are able to write at a check like about at the moment, between 4 and 5 million a year, beautiful. Let's play at Belmore.
But I had this conversation about why don't we just play at Belmore? Because the ground's rocking. Well, you know, it was presented to me, we actually lose money.
They do.
By playing a game at Belmore.
They do.
And we earn money by taking it to a court, which, still is difficult for me to comprehend, but it's the truth.
Because it is the truth, because corporately, people have now got used to these magnificent stadiums, waiters coming down serving you drinks, not having an ice bucket next to you where you can pull a beer out. Those days are gone, mate. And women don't want to go and sit on the hill and drink a beer. And women don't want to. They want to have a seat to sit in. Women buy merchandise. Women decide on season tickets. Because, mate, females have and if you're not going to actually cater for them and their needs and kids' needs and school needs and safety and everything else, how in the world are you going to grow your audience? It's all right to say you like going over. People love going to Leichhardt. They go to the pub beforehand with their 4 mates. They have a few beers, sit on the hill, laugh and giggle and throw. But that's not where a woman wants to sit, with the kids and family and people we want to attract in membership. And my point, and there's only a certain number of seats you can sit in at Leichhardt. So I love the feeling of Leichhardt, but I'm just saying to you, and clearly, if you want to lose money at a game, that's fine. We don't want to lose money at a game. We won't be paying to lose money at a game because it's rocket and rolling at Belmore. At the end of the day, we will want the best value for our membership and fans and our corporates to grow the club going forward and get off the bottom of the ladder.
And it's hard. It's hard to accept. It's something I had to accept as a St. Helens fan, a St. Helens player. The ground that has Nosey Road, that has so many of my childhood memories, like times with my father. I remember playing on there as an 8-year-old, scoring a try, made my debut there, my Great Britain debut there, like all these amazing memories after grand finals, after cup finals. And it's a housing estate. And I drive past the housing estate, and I used to drive past the ground and have this feeling.
Wigan's a Tesco.
Central Park is a Tesco. So you're up and down the aisles where all these... But it's a hard reality for people to accept. But it's something that I've... Like me as a St. Helens fan and former player, I've processed and dealt with. And the new ground is great.
Magnificent. It's a great rugby league ground. And the crowds are up, percentages, the membership, everything's up. Well, and it's a great ground to watch footy at.
There's evidence there to go like, well, here's why we move, guys.
Correct.
Because you're likely onto something there in terms of that more of a family-friendly...
Let's look at the big clubs in England. They've all got brand new grounds, all upgraded grounds. Leeds is upgraded, spent millions on upgrading. Wigan, So moved to bloody what's the name park away from so St Helens, Hull, brand new stadium. They're not playing like they should be in the stadium, they grew their membership. So if you go to all those stadiums, Warrington, a great little boutique stadium to watch footy at right in the heart of Warrington. Now, with all due respect, I used to love the Wire, but at the end of the day, mate,
Wilderspill was...
Wilderspill. Like, would you want to go to Castleford now? Like, honestly, I still remember at Salford in the old Salford days. I remember the players getting changed with the mascot because there was only those round showers you had to walk around.
I remember it very well. I remember it very well.
But the world's moved on, though. Yeah. I look back on those memories and I love them and I think they're great and all the rest of it. But at the end of the day, they're gone. It's a new world.
It's time to move on, and we know it.
It is.
But still, it's difficult when you're having that. 2 years down the track, it will be, Jesus Christ, you remember when we used to go to Leichhardt and the place would stink? I think Ricky Stewart mentioned the fact that he could smell piss down in Canberra. Like, that's a big no-no for people wanting to go. Like, and the old hard-nosers go, well...
But I still remember Leichhardt twice in my time with South of hosing the players down because there's no water coming from the shower.
Yeah.
The only thing that came was from the tap. We had to bring there's a true story, bring the hose in from outside and hose the players down after the game.
Yeah, welcome to professional rugby league.
The beauty of Leichhardt, you know? There's not a lot of beauty being in that and going to the toilets and... Anyway, let's not go on to that. Yeah. I love Leichhardt. I love the feel. I'm an old school rugby league guy, but at the end of every modern club moves on, mate.
Exactly. Nostalgia is great,
but
we do move on. Day one, you come in. You address the players. Well,
the first 2 weeks I was there was no one there. I spent 2 weeks by myself before I go to the hospital, because I didn't know I was going to go in the hospital. I just wanted to get a feel of the place, go through all the financials myself, go through all the books, go through all the player payments, contracts. I did all that by myself for about a week and a half, just coming in every day and working my way through it. Before the players didn't come back until I think the second or third week, and the staff come back most because they're taking holidays, etc. So I got a feel before they came in, before the players actually came in.
And what's your opening address to the players and the staff?
I didn't.
Both. Have you actually addressed?
I didn't address the players because I didn't want to come in. We're going to do this. I just, I actually talked to Benji, obviously, and the coaching staff, and I said to Benji, mate, this is the things we spoke long hours about how we wanted to set things up, communication-wise, media-wise, him and I-wise, and meetings and things like that. But, mate, I really didn't address the staff, the players or anything like that, because at the end of the day, and also, mate, when you go into a club, it's quite funny when you go into a club. Like, you go in there and you don't go in there with the mentality you're going to have to put people off. You don't. Honestly, I've never brought anybody into any place I've gone. I've grown my own staff, whether it be South or Penrith or wherever it was. I never took them from there to anywhere else. And so when I went, I go with an open mind about people. But it was when you go in there, some decisions you've got to make straight away. And so going in on first day, hey, I'm Shane Richardson, I'm new CEO. It's great to see you. We're going to build this team. And then a week later, tap them on the shoulder and say, well, I'm sorry, mate, you're not here any longer. That's not the way. I like to have a clear look at what's going on, talk to the people that matter, and then assess where we need to go. We needed to make some decisions quickly in football and stuff, which replaced none of them, by the way. So we promoted internally in one case. And it's the same with the administration-wise. Once we got football right, because you've got to get football right first, so we spent about 2 or 3 weeks getting football right and the decisions we had to make, some hard decisions. And then we moved on to now where we're trying to get things right internally. A couple of people moved on. Some people buy into it, some people don't. And we brought Sean Millenkamp in, etc. So it's a process. I liken the staff to these... like rats in a cage. They were running around at 100 miles an hour, putting so much effort in and going nowhere, And so what I'm trying to do is open the cage up and let them run and get their ideas and let them spread their ideas and try and do things in a more transparent and open way and let them run their own departments. But at the same time, fit in with and we spent a lot of time over the last 6 weeks, which is so important, putting together a strategic plan of where we want to be, what are the departments like, what do we want to look like, where are we as a team, and how we used to operate in a lot of silos, how we pull all that together, including the football team, because the football team was very separate, but the football team's now getting an understanding. The first people I'll present the strategic plan is to the football team. Now, whether they want to understand it or not, I don't care.
So you presented to the
I will be.
You will
I haven't
be.
presented to anybody yet because the board only approved it this week. But next Tuesday I'll present it to the football team with the coaches and all the team and the staff, all the team. But the staff had a lot to do with putting it together, but they'll get to see it in the big screen what it looks like.
So the Shane Richardson West Tigers vision.
No, it's not the Shane. Funny enough, it's not. It's the West Tigers management team vision because we sat down. Funnily, look, when I took over, it was coincidental. But before I arrived, the CFO resigned and went to St George. Like, he'd been there for 8 years. A good guy, by the way. He resigned and left. They just appointed a CCO who I had nothing to do with at all but appointing him, and he didn't start till the end of January. But so he was brand new. They put an interim football manager in, Matt Betsy, for the period of time till the end of May. So he was virtually brand new as football manager. And the only person that was there for long term was Chris Williams, Warren, the media guy. So I actually had a brand new team of staff to start with, as well, and a brand new coach. And but it was good because it was actually, you start from ground zero. There's nobody with any, we used to do it this way, or this is the way we did it. Well, there was none. And so that I was able to sort of tell them what I think a football club should be run. Well, I think I said on your podcast the McDonald's formula for running a football club, and these are the changes we need to make. I want you all part of the journey, but if you don't think you can do it, jump off.
Yeah,
and most of them have stayed on. So we put the strategic plan together, and we presented it to the board. The board signed off on it unanimously. We'll take that on to our shareholders, stakeholders, our corporates, by meeting with our corporates. But firstly, we'll present it to staff and the players and coaching staff, because they're the real. They can't work without them.
And the board were unanimous.
There was only 4 of them, by the way, so it was a quick one. But they're from different clubs. I mean, there's a guy from there from West, there's a guy from Balmain, there's a guy from Holman Barnes, and there's an independent chairman at the moment. So, like, you haven't got these 3 other independents, but they all agreed unanimously with it.
One of the changes you spoke about, and obviously back-to-back wooden spoons, a finals drought, clear changes needed to be made. And one of those changes came in the form of recruitment manager Scott Fulton. So for me, it seemed like a bizarre appointment anyway, because of the lack of communication and the lack of togetherness and connection with him and the new coaching staff. How did that conversation go down, and why was he even appointed when it was clear it wasn't a head coach's appointment? This gets back to
true corporate governance, though. True corporate governance means the board allows you to do the job, and then you pass that down to the CEO who deals with the football management and everything else. Well, obviously, it didn't go down to the football management.
Alignment is the word I was looking for.
It didn't go down to the football. Now, this has got not Scott Fulton's fault, by the way, and this is no reflection on Scott. His father's one of the all-time greats of all time. But I mean, he's obviously got a great knowledge in recruitment and everything else. But the thing I came to grips with in those 2 weeks and sitting there, and I'd never met Scott before, so I had no challenge of Scott or anything like that at all. But when I sat down and looked at the football department, there was things that we needed to do in the football department, and what were we as a club? Now, I immediately, wherever I've been, I've tried. I always say you win a premiership with the 17 players, 7 of them juniors. And if you look at Penrith and South, that's what happened. If you look at Penrith now, it's still what's happening. Then you have 5 or 6, 7 blokes in the middle who do all the hard work. The Alex Twals, you know what I mean? The guys that grunt it out every week, and you can turn around, they're there doing their job. Reliable, and we probably need a few more blokes. And then you look at your cream, and you say, well, where's your cream? Well, we've got the teams are out there trying to find spines. We've got probably one of the best young players coming. In my opinion, I watched all the tapes on Galvin before I got there, schoolboy tapes and everything else. And I just said, this is John Sutton reincarnated. And I've said it to his parents. And he is John Sutton reincarnated. And I built South around John Sutton. So you had him, you've got Latu Fino, who's going to be a really good player. He's had a hamstring injury. He starts back in seconds this week, but a really good young player. You've got Luai coming to the club. You've obviously signed Bud from St George. You've got a great young fullback. You've got the best hooker in the game, in my opinion, and you've got one of the best young hookers coming through, and behind him, young junior. So we've got a spine already there. We don't have to go out. We bought Olam because we still probably need outside backs. So we looked at that. So when you say that, then you sit down and you say, okay, recruitment. What is our recruitment policy? My policy is very simple. We're basing our recruitment on a development club. We've got 9,000 juniors. People are trying to steal our juniors everywhere. Our job's to make sure we don't lose any of those really good players that are coming through. Bring them through. That's the 7 juniors. We've got 1 at the moment. But we're going to bring them through. We've got, as I said, I gave you the rundown on where we're going in the lower grades before. We've got these great young kids, we're probably one of the best young centres in the game coming through. All those sort of things fill in there. So we're a development club. We're not a recruitment club. We won't be recruiting for ball and mats. We won't be going out there to buy players in from Queensland and flying but some of these clubs are flying players in from New Zealand still to play ball and mats. That's not what we're doing, because you can understand why they do it, because they've got 3,000 juniors, or in the Roosters' case, they've got no juniors. So I get that, but we're not that club. We're Penrith. We've got 9,000 juniors, successful ball and mat sides. Let's do that. So why do we need a recruitment manager? So I sit there and look at that, and I said to Scott, this is the way. I don't know what you've been told the way we're going to do it, mate, but we're a recruitment club, Scott. You're a great recruitment manager, nothing to do with that, but I don't need a recruitment manager.
To go and get so it's a redundant position now.
Correct. And we haven't replaced it, and we won't.
Yeah.
And so what we do with the selection, the recruitment committee now is very simple. We've got myself, we've got the guy in charge of development, Shannon Gallant, we've got Matt Betsy, the football manager, and Benji Marshall. And we sat down, we worked out, mapped out what we're going to buy, what we need, all the rest of it, looking at England, looking all over. We know exactly what we need, which we won't discuss here, but we know what we need. It's not massive. It's probably 3 or 4. We're not going to need a halfback for the next, who knows, or hooker. We've got players in those key positions. Our forward pack's a good pack, hard-working, some great young forwards coming through from Mats. They'll take 18 months, but they'll come through. They're 17, 18, 19 now. And we've got cream. Now, we probably need another outside back of quality, which we were already on the market for, but we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to tell everybody about it. And that little group of 4 are the only people who know. I don't tell the board. I don't tell
really?
No, I don't tell the board what we're doing with recruitment. Because at the end of the day, what we'll do is we'll go forward and have it done. And then, for example, Luai, I told Barry the night before we signed Luai, we was always going to be, we're going to sign. We hadn't signed Luai. We hadn't got him under contract or otherwise. The night before, I rang Barry and said, mate, you better let the board know that we've signed Luai, and it'll be announcing tomorrow, which he did his little press conference, My point about that is, mate, those decisions through Crew Corporate, and the trouble with West Tigers is all this stuff got leaked. We talked to a player and all of a sudden it was all over the papers. As soon as you tell the managers or tell people to do that, it can't be a secret. But if we keep it amongst ourselves, nobody knows what us 4 are thinking and what we're doing. And we can go, which was same as we did at South, we can go into the marketplace and pick up players and have discussions with players that are based on confidentiality. And if you don't want to be confidentiality, then let's call it off. If it's announced in the paper that we're chasing you, we'll call it off.
It requires an incredible amount of trust.
It does.
For both you, the players, the managers, but also you and the board.
Yep.
Like they've got to allow you, and I've seen that go wrong.
Yep.
Where people have been left to retention and recruitment and signing off on deals, and the board then go, we trusted you, and you've...
I won't sign off any major deal or any along those lines without... So if we're going to spend $1.2 million on Luai, I'll be talking to the board about it.
Yeah, okay.
And they'd know what's going on. But most of the day-to-day stuff and recruitment, the 300 to 500,000, the middle players, the board, that's not necessary. And mate, most importantly, the board's there to run the club. It's not there to run football. It's part of to understand. But if you're in line with budgets, if you're starting to win, and always, if your KPIs aren't working out and the true core, you pay for it. But what I'm trying to say is the board's an important part of it all. But at the end of the day, we need to get into a position where we can be really finite about what we're doing in football without everybody knowing about it. Not that the board would leak it, because I think this board's a really good one and they've got information over the last, it's been fantastic, and we might do more. But at the moment, it's a learning curve for both of us of where we're going through, and the trust is really important. I think they've got a trust with me. Certainly Benji and I, we believe we've got a great trust with each other, and the football management and everything. The things we've discussed over the last 6 weeks are probably really out there. about a whole range of different things. No one's even mentioned it. It's written up here in this column on this thing, and it's so far away from what we're doing. It's ridiculous.
So, sorry, how many people are on the retention and recruitment? Four. Who gets final say?
Benji.
So if it's a 2-2 split?
Benji. I gave you the example when I was at Eastern Brisbane when they had a rule that you had to have 3 on the committee and there was a coach and 2 other independent selectors. And I made myself an independent selector so I could vote with the coach every time. Because at the end of the day, mate, the coach has got to decide. I'm not going to bring any player to this club at all under any circumstance without Benji saying yes. Because he's the guy who gets the blowtorch on him winning and losing. I'm not going to bring a bloke in that he doesn't want, or a bloke he's got a doubt about, or a bloke. And we know what type of bloke we want to bring in. The type of person we want to bring in, and that's as important as everything else for Benji and me. We're on the same, but I'll forgive my opinions about it. At the end of the day, though, Benji says no, it's no, and I mean that because at the end of the day, he lives and dies by the calls, not me.
Yeah, well, I think that's fair enough. Just on the junior basis, looking at Isaiah Yeo, for example, he's not a Penrith junior.
No, he's not.
James Fisher-Harris, Moses Leota, they're not Penrith juniors.
Not.
So you can fall into the trap of, hey, we've got 9,000, they're all local. It's not worked like that.
I didn't say we weren't going to recruit. I said we weren't going to recruit for ball and mats. So we might bring in 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 18. If we spot and bring in, like we bought Fatape. Well, I didn't bring Fatape in, despite you saying what they did. Benji wanted Fatape and he played first grade last weekend, so it wasn't a bad call from Benji. My point about it is that there are a lot of players out there with huge want factors who haven't been getting a go. Most of them fit into that category of that chunk in the middle that do all the hard work and really want to do it. So you bring the juniors through, and some of them are special. Galvin's special, the young hooker's special, and there's a couple other ones, as a centre, as I said. So they're going to come through and be the cream at the top, but you still have to recruit in that area there. But we're not at carnivals trying to pick up 16, 17-year-olds. You're not trying to wine and dine parents and families and get them in. It's not what we want to do, because we want to give our own young kids this pathway of belief that we're going to take care of them. It's up to them if they make it at 19. If they don't make it at 18 or 19, it's up to them. But they're going to get the chance to do it. We're not going to put a ceiling on it. But that doesn't mean we're not going to try and make like our second grade, and we're going to make sure that stock with players who have a want factor, who want to go higher within that second tier. And that's part of the McDonald's plan I've used at South and Penrith, by the way. Now you're right about those guys that Penrith brought in, but sometimes you'll see a player who's special at 18 or 19, and you'll bring him in and pay the money. Because I can tell you now, you can sign them at 15, they get through to 19. If you haven't got the right club and the right setup, they won't stay anyway.
Yeah.
They'll go somewhere else, which a lot of them have done. A lot of Penrith juniors are playing elsewhere, but the key to Penrith is picking the right ones and keeping them. And they've done a good job.
Well, you've got one of their really good ones.
And I've been chasing him since he was 15 years old. Daryl Mather and I have been arguing over him ever since he was 15. You ask him. And I just couldn't get him. And finally, it's like playing poker, and you get to the end of the night, and all of a sudden you got 3 aces. What am I going to do? It was. And it was an easy sell on me, because when I saw that we wanted to get, it was just so easy. And he's he's not just the one. The 1.2 is irrelevant, because he'll play up to what that level is. Mate, it's what
I actually think it's a bargain.
Oh, it is. But the biggest bargain is this, mate. The 50% of all players are Polynesian. 80% of our players are at the moment. Having Jarome Luai as a leader of the community, being able to use him in the southwest and it's just and he loves it. He loves TikTok.
He's proud of who he is, and he's proud of where he's from.
And I want to make him even prouder. And so it's a no-brainer from a commercial point of view. It just fits in. When you read the strategic plan, he fits in perfectly with the strategic plan. He's got and he's a really common sense guy with great humility. People think he hasn't got humility. He's got great humility. What he is, though, and you would have played with him for years. How many smart-ass halfbacks have you played with, mouthing off the big forwards, and you've had to front up on it?
Yeah,
you expect it, don't you?
Yeah, and he carries himself how he carries himself. He makes no excuses for who he is.
He loves his family. He takes care of his family. He's had some tough times, and he's lived through them with his family. Man, he'll do me every day of the week. If I can get them all like that, I'll be laughing. Yeah,
like I say, genuinely, people say 1.2. With all respect, with a club with the situation like they are at the Tigers, I thought you'd have to pay more for him.
Yep.
That's just my opinion. I
Don't
really
tell him
did.
that he's manager me on the week.
No, I genuinely think it's a.
I'll get Walk on the phone tomorrow and say, yeah, James, you got me.
Yeah, it's an absolute.
He's a great tie for the club. And what I loved about him was Richo. I said, what are you doing this for, Richo? I'm doing it for the rings. We're going to win rings, Richo.
That's what he said.
Yeah, I play football for the rings, Richo. And I thought,
wow,
I play. Funnily enough, through all this talk and everything else, I play for the rings too. I want to win premierships. I'm not there to build a nice club that looks really good and you can sell to Mr. Whippy man, the Whippy can. I want to win premierships, but you don't win premierships unless you do all the little things right underneath, and that's what I want. And he's a winner, mate. Brings a winning mentality. Won't accept losing. And it's like these young Galvin's played in 11 straight grand finals and won them. John Sutton played in 11 straight grand finals and won them. So when they come into first grade, they're not even thinking about losing.
They don't have the same scars. I like Galvin when he took on the line, and him. I think Canberra's first try, they ran it on the last against the Raiders.
Yep.
Thought that's a guy that's not scarred by the past.
First time in first grade. Like it's quite phenomenal, really. But Sutton was the same. I still remember Sutton scored his first try in first grade and got up and did the bra man salute afterwards. I'm going, what's he doing that for? Is he celebrating with his mum and dad? He said, no, it's the bra salute. I thought, oh, fantastic. That's what I need over there. On television tonight on Channel 9. So, but no, he turned out to be a great player. Most capped player of all time in South's history.
With Jarome Luai, you likened it to the impact of South Sydney's signing of Greg Inglis.
Yep.
Can he have anywhere near the impact of Greg coming to South Sydney and in particular Redfern?
Can he have? Yeah, I think he can because he's in a key position. The funny part about Greg Inglis that people forget about, two things. The first thing is the number of positions he could play. Mate, he was the Clive Churchill winner in a grand final at 5'8".
Mm.
When he played in the grand final, he won 5'8". Centre for Australia, centre and wing for Queensland State of Origin, fullback for South, captain to a premiership. Let's look at Luai. He has got all of those leadership qualities already. Greg sort of gained them over the years, and he's a quiet leader. Luau's not a quiet leader, which I like. But, mate, he has got so much skill and ability and charisma. Greg had charisma, so Greg had a different sort of charisma. Jarome's got a loud charisma, you know what I mean? Greg was a quiet charisma. It was like, that look, and he didn't try and do all the goanna. Like that was just something he just naturally did, but he had that sort of, that quiet humility. This is a different cat, but he's in a really important position. I mean, he's going to lead us around the field. I mean, he's going to be our leader for hopefully the next 10 years.
And the off-field community leader as well.
Massive off the field, particularly when you have a look at what we're doing with the community, which we're really excited about. He'll slot straight into that because a lot of it's to do with things. We're going to be doing a lot of work with school-to-work transitions, so that getting kids jobs and getting jobs and tertiary education and growing in that. And we're doing a lot with domestic violence in schools. And having the face of our players delivering those messages, and our women players as well, is a really important thing to try and turn that phase around. And more importantly, for people to understand what domestic violence is, because a lot of kids are nowadays, they don't understand what domestic violence actually is because they've been so used to it, and domestic violence unfortunately becomes not hereditary, but it can become repetitive in your cycle. So getting that message across to people is a crucial thing about what we're trying to do with our community programs in schools. And whereas it's up to him what part he plays, but he's certainly going to be the face of our community.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you've got grand plans for him, for the West Tigers. There's a lot of change. Now, the previous regime, part of their plan was to take an iconic player that captured the imaginations of a generation of footballers from his role within the media and put him behind Coach Tim Sheens for 2 years. I think there was a 5-year, the staple 5-year plan, 2 years assistant, 3 years coaching. Now, that plan got flipped on its head. That's been fast forwarded to this season. And what, truthfully, from the outside looking in, what did you make of that plan?
Sometimes when you're under pressure, you make decisions about survival, not about future. I don't mean being nasty about that at all, but from outside it just looked like, okay, we're going to go back to the future. bring Tim back, do this, Benji back, all that 2005 thing. Whereas really the future is about looking forward. And what do we need to be to become a modern club? What do we need to have a modern coaching staff? What do we want to do? Not that Tim's been one of the greatest coaches. And, I'm in awe of Tim Sheen, so don't get me wrong there. But you asked me what it looked like from outside. That's what it looked like from outside to me. But it didn't really worry me because I didn't really worry about West Tigers. But what I think's happened, and I really do think that sometimes you can make good errors in recruitment and bad errors, and good errors in coaching and bad errors. I think through all this, through all the meld that's happened, I think Benji coming out at the end of it is a real positive. Now, do I know he's going to be successful? Of course I don't know he's going to be successful, but I've had a lot of young coaches in my time. First of all, he chose to go out of media. He doesn't need the money. He chose to go out of media. He much prefers to be a coach, and I believe that he tells me that I believe him. He's got new ideas and new ways of doing things, which I think are really important. We've discussed them. We've discussed in depth his attitude towards coaching and what we're doing. He's got a young coaching staff around him outside of probably Bomber Morris, which puts more pressure on him. But he chose to do it. But he has surrounded himself with people he trusts.
John Morris isn't old.
No, but he's been a first grade coach. Is what I'm saying. But what I'm trying to say is experience wise. But having said all that, he's dedicated. He wants to be. Most importantly, mate, as you know, Jammer, the art of coaching is as much to do with the art of man management as anything else. If you can't man manage people, you're in trouble. And he's got a great affinity and way of management, and he's honest with them. But I've noticed with him, he's got a real rapport with the players, a tough rapport. They respect him because of who he is, and let's be honest, he's one of the great players. But at the end of the day, he's got a view of coaching, which I like it at somewhere between Wayne, who sometimes wouldn't know who the 5'8" with reserve grade was, to Madge, who was there at 5 o'clock every morning. Somewhere in between there's a Benji Marshall. He's not Wayne and he's certainly not Madge. But in this day and age, mate, I've learnt, and I made a comment in the paper today, the young players today are a completely different breed to the young players 10 years ago even, or 15 years ago. They live in a different world and have different expectations of the way they're treated and all these sort of things. And I think Benji at 39's got a modern approach to it. He's just come out of playing. He certainly understands fully the Polynesian way to manage in detail with like Andrew Webber's done a great job. But more important, just overall and generally with players, he has a rapport with them, which I think is good. And in his own life, he's chosen to, and I think this is really, I wish, and I said it in the paper today, I wish I'd made the decision 20 years ago. It might have saved a lot of personal challenges for me in my family life. Because I think he's making decisions about what he thinks is right for him and his family. And his attitude is if I don't lose sight of that and spending my time with my kids and doing things right at night between 6 and 8 when they're home, then that makes me a better person and a coach. I've never seen Benji not there on time for a meeting. I've never seen him leave early to go when the training's finished. He might leave after training and want me there till 5 o'clock at night doing. But as far as the efficiency of his program and the way it works, I've seen nothing to make me worry about. And I'd heard all the stories before I got there, and I spent 2 weeks having a look at things and everything else. And if there was anything challenges that way, that's not Benji's challenge. Benji's challenge is dealing with the blowtorch, and it hasn't been applied yet. He'll get his usual honeymoon period and everything else. And that's my job because I've had to handle a blowtorch. I've won as many wooden spoons as I've won premierships. So it's not, I know what it takes to manage the blowtorch and to deal with it. And it's not about becoming insular, cutting yourself off or anything like that, but it's about not getting off the journey. We've decided on the journey, don't go off the path.
I guess some of the criticism for this plan and maybe this new style is the fact it's a brand new coach who's not followed the usual trajectory of a typical NRL head coach, for example, cutting his teeth in the lower grades, maybe moving overseas to have his own team, being an assistant for way longer than one season. So that's the first thing. And even the Wayne Bennett comparison in terms of man management and I've been around Wayne where he maybe isn't up to date with exactly everything what's going on in the system, like the English national team, but he's got the runs on the board.
Yeah, yes.
And you look at most coaches' trajectories, so success leaves clues in terms of that really hard work. And look, I applaud Benji's approach, and there's a lot of data and a lot of evidence to suggest it works in most roles and most high pressure roles in a corporate world. I just don't know if it can work in that high pressure coaching stakes. And this might sound ridiculous to people. Is 2 hours of family time an evening as a head coach, is that realistic?
Yes.
Because you actually think it's realistic?
I absolutely believe it's realistic because, it's funny. It's like people, high-powered people in business think they can never have a holiday because if they go away, the world's going to collapse. Then they go away for a month and it didn't collapse. In fact, it kept going. And it's a bit like not allocating time to your family. You think you don't have to because you're so busy, but if you don't do it, and if you do it, it's amazing. Everything else falls into place around it. It's about priorities in life, mate, and it's about the way people think and the way people deal with things. Now, do I know Benji's going to be successful? Benji doesn't even know. He thinks he will because he's so confident in himself. I don't know that, but I know this, that, all you can do is apply the principles that you believe make a rugby league team great, coach it correctly, be disciplined, and he's disciplined. There's no doubt about that. Highly intelligent, a lot smarter than a lot of the coaches I've ever been involved with. And he knows the salary cap backwards. He knows all the things that are going on, the reviews and everything. He is all over all that, smarter and quicker at picking him ever. Do I think he'll be successful? Yeah, I do. Do I guarantee it? No, I don't, but that's my job. My job's to deal with it over the next period of time, help him through the tough times, set up a system around him that helps him, encouraging and support him as much as possible. But there may become a day, and he knows that, and I know that, and there may become a day with me when they tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, Richo, you said you were going to do all these things and you haven't done it. It's about time you left. Well, okay, you leave. You never know that, but I know this, that if you don't have faith in people and put considerable amount of effort and knowledge and organisation around them, it's hard for them to succeed. I think we've now created a world around Benji where it's going to be a lot easier for succeed than it was pre-Christmas. And I'm really confident about that, and it'll get better and better. The success is up to Benji, and that's why I say about players. I'm not going to start foisting players or managers or anybody on Benji, because at the end of the day, he's got to deal with it. But I'm there to bounce it off him. I give him my opinion on the team every week. I gave him an opinion last week. He didn't take it all. Beautiful. Because, mate, I've learned a long time ago, okay, that's fine. You've got to live and die by it. I don't get bitter or angry, you should have done this, or have a drink with him, mates. I told Benji to... Well, because it's all bullshit. At the end of the day, you do your best to win on Saturday night, and Benji will do his best. And my point about it all, though, he's never going to... You may worry about the old Wayne. Do you know where Wayne started?
Canberra.
No, he didn't start in Canberra. He started... His first job he had was... In those days, Brisbane was... Sydney were two comps. He went straight from the police academy, coaching... A mob of kids at a police to coaching first grade. He went straight to a first grade position in Brisbane Rugby League, which in those days there was two comps. So Wayne had this incredible intelligence and this rapport with men that he was able to translate into whatever level he went at, as he still can do. And that's what Benji's got to do. He's got to show that he can do that and translate it in. If he can or he can't, we'll wait and see. But I do think there's a nice little slot there for something different. To win a premiership, you got to have something different.
Yeah, and look,
Madge was different. We got Madge in the South, mate. His SAS tactics and camps and nearly killing Roy Asatazi and all the rest, but we needed it because we had to have the discipline and we went through it. And then after a while, it became a situation where the voice, we needed to make a change after. It was a tough. I appointed him to win the premiership, and I had to appoint him to sack him afterwards because that in the job, very difficult because he's a good human being. But that's the world that sport lives in, and Benji's got to live through that world yet, and so did Madge.
I guess you could make the point that, because I was just going to say, well, is that not what the West Tigers need? But they had Madge, and that didn't work. Maybe having this conversation, maybe that is what the Tigers need. I just wonder, like my observation of coaches, so I think to expect 2 hours of free time is probably unrealistic because someone's going to be wanting to call, and also you will fall into the trap of being consumed by the training session, the game before, the game coming up, the player contract, the injury, wanting to, if a player
10
goes...
years ago, I made a decision. I wasn't going to return a phone call after 6 o'clock at night, and I've never done it. You can ring me after 6 o'clock, you'll never get me. You can text me, you'll never get me, because I made a decision after going from a divorce that I was never going to put my family second again when I came home at night. Now, my point about that is that was a conscious decision I made, and it ended up making no difference to my life because I'm an early riser, so at 7 o'clock next morning I rang, and they were never up. But I've left a message. Richo's rung you back. Where are you? And it proved successful for me because it allowed me to take a lot of anxiety out of my life. It allowed me to relax at night, have a glass of wine with my wife. You can't have a glass of wine if you're going to get a phone call from the press at 7 o'clock at night. At the end of the day, I don't drink at games. I don't drink during the day. At the end of the day, though, that was my quiet time. So him making this decision, sometimes, mate, it's funny. The coaches Bill Belichick was one of the great coaches. Well, he is the greatest coach of all time in the NFL on his figures, but his time had come. He got the paper because, mate, he then lost the rapport of the new breed of young players coming through and getting the best out of them. All the best coaches at the moment in the NFL are younger coaches who are understanding the need to understand the younger players and the way, because they think totally differently, mate. I know from running my own business, young people think totally differently the way I did. Like, I was at work at 7 every morning, 7 every night at my first job because I want to be the best. And I spent 13 years in the one job, straight from university, straight into finance, 13 years. After 18 months, if they're not CEO, they want to move on. I'm serious. Like, it's like, what are you doing for me? I was promised all these things as a kid now. We weren't promised things. We were promised that, you had to put food on the table and work hard. Their thing is, I was promised this, I got an education. Why can't I be the marketing manager now when I'm 19 or 20? That's their mentality. Now, if you want to crush that, they're never going back. But you've got to be able to deal with that and understand it and work with it. Even the day and age now, man, let's be honest, business has changed dramatically from COVID. People have now worked it. You don't have to work every day of the week in the office. Now, people say, you've got to go back to the office. But they're only going back 3 and 4 days. They're not going back full time.
But are they maximising their potential?
That's the question. And what I'm saying is,
are they able to reach their potential with that style and that attitude?
I would not have believed it, but the company that we're involved with was involved with was Rich Digital. Is a digital company with most of the stuff could be done at home. Most of the stuff be done online. It's not that; it's whether you can trust that they're going to do it and their output and KPIs are being met. The big thing about coming into the office, though, is building teamwork
and connection.
That's the big thing.
And trust.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, if you said to a company today they're going to work in the office 4 days and go home have the 5th day as a what do you call it? The day off, people will do it tomorrow because people in the old days you got to work Saturday morning too, aren't you? Well, 7 o'clock, and 7 o'clock at night. Well, that's just normal. You got to work to. Mate, the world's changed. The attitude towards young, and I had to change. They call me in the business for my son. They're all under 35. A chuggy. Now, if you look up what a chuggy means, you'll understand what they thought of me. And then, in fact, they got my cards printed with Shane Richardson, co-founder and chuggy on it. So I have to hand out cards with chuggy in the old days before I joined West Tigers. But at the end of the day, it's a different world now, mate. And maybe Benji's got onto something that might be special and different. And you need something different to win premierships. Do
you think, is there a worry that this could become the narrative behind the Tigers and Benji Marshall?
Well, it's a worry if it's only a worry.
Like, why is this even? Why is this public knowledge?
Well, that's very simple to say, but I don't want to get into that because there's all sort of articles in the paper and everything else about. At the end of the day, if you're running a football club, there's always going to be outside influences crashing in, and what you've got to do is you've got to just, have the strategic plan. Have the coach's confidence, have belief in what you're doing, and keep on the path. You can't let it bang out, and especially can't let it bang out in one game. So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say to you is that it only becomes a narrative if the inside organisation, the board, the staff, the administration, feel it's the case. And that's not the case with Benji in any way, shape or form. And if it was, I'd have to move. But it's a long way away from doing something like that. It's, I'm not a person that if you have to change things to make things better, you can. But you don't go off the path. You might have to just go around on a little roller skate for a while to get there. But you get back on the path. And, mate, we're on a path going forward to make this club successful. How long it's going to take, I'm not really sure. But, I'm pretty confident I call it at the moment, we're stopping the bleeding, from where we've come from. And the next 12 months after that, we charge forward on what we want to do. And that's where we are. And so, honestly, I've got no qualms about Benji, no qualms about his attitude. And it's got nothing to do. The winning, mate, is the players. And the players go home. The players finish clean and go home. And they got to win on Saturday and Sunday, and they go home, they have time with their family and time to themselves and play their little games on the TV and all the rest of it. But, at the end of the day, I'm not sure. And the coaches certainly work longer hours than that, but I think it's a storm and a kick-up.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, just thinking back, it's not a one-size-fits-all. There's no cookie-cutter approach. I think it's about dials, being able to dial it up, dial it down.
Correct.
That's just a bit of a personal opinion. It is. And maybe in time, Benji will dial it up. Maybe he'll dial it down.
I think he'll dial it down. He may dial it up a little bit. But, it's he's quite happy with the 10 he's got at the moment. So I don't think he wants an extra 10 at the moment. So he's quite comfortable where he's going.
You spoke about stopping some of the bleeding. Tigers fans' expectations this year, are they going to need to exercise more patience?
I think not just Tigers fans.
Sorry, more, when I say more patience, like for a longer period of time.
Look, I say when I took over South, for example, we were absolute rubbish. We were the worst. If I named some of the players that played in that era, you wouldn't even know who they were. And then we became ordinary. Then we became average. Then we became fair. Then we became good. And then we won a premiership.
Was it as linear as that?
Oh, what? Mate, we were terrible. The squad,
but it wasn't an escalator.
No.
It was there were zigzag.
Well, it's only you guys cheating that got us out of the wooden spoon one of those years. We would have won 3 in a row otherwise. But at the end of the day, it's not. But then you can be, like I've said before, you can be at Penrith and win a wooden spoon. You run 13th the next year and you win it. But we had the same as we had at West Tigers. We had money behind us, strong leagues club, great facilities, good senior players and great juniors. We've got the same at West. Now, I'm not saying we're going to win the premiership in 2 years' time. But what I'm saying is there's no ceiling on where we can go and how quickly we can do it. We've inherited what we've got at the moment and we're going to need to refine it both on and off the field. And this is about stopping the bleeding, refining it, getting ourselves right and going for it. How many games we win, I can't guarantee. We'll win a lot more next year. But I don't know how many games we go. And I don't want to put a ceiling on it. I don't want people to think they go into the game and we can't make the 8. I don't want people to go to the game thinking we need to make 5 to be better than the 4 we won last year. I don't look at it that way. I said after the game on the weekend, I said to Benji, I saw green shoots. We got beat 30. I've been beaten a lot more than that at Canberra, I can tell you. I got beat 66-6 one night and then had to get a fan thing afterwards. That was one of the great nights of my life. My point about it is that I saw green shoots. We come back from 14-12 with resilience, and then we let them. We then lost our concentration, and they got back. The kid came good for us. We got a star fullback. The forward pack had a real dig in the second half. I saw some green shoots coming through. That doesn't make you win, but there's going to be a lot of teams get smacked at Canberra. Now, it's Saturday night at home at Leichhardt. I like to think we played a lot better, and I'm sure Benji and the players think that. So every week we'll see how we go, and as long as we keep progressing, we'll keep going forward. But we're locked in with what we got. We've got a squad, we've got a coach. You can't jump around and jump up and down. It's not fantasy football. You can't buy somebody in from Brisbane to fill it up. That's what I love about fantasy football. Honestly, I know people love it, but honestly, it's just not the real world, It's just nothing like what the real. But they think it's the real world.
Yeah, super coach is not the real world.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. But I know they love it, and I think it's great. My son loves it. My kids love it. But I just sit there thinking to myself, this is not the real world here. You haven't got them coming at you on Monday morning about your performance on Sunday night. So it's a different world altogether.
How long do you envisage Benji having in the role?
Well, he's got a 3-year contract. I like that he was there for 10 years. I think that we could, I think he's the sort of guy who can change his thoughts. To be longevity and see, people talk about Wayne and Wayne systems and everything else. Wayne's got an amazing ability of reinventing himself.
Yeah.
Whether he's reinventing himself by coaching changes, big coaching changes with people who loved him, or reinventing himself with strength and conditioning, or reinventing. He's always thinking about how do I get better, and that's how you last. Now, Benji's got a contract with us, and I want him to fulfil it, and I think he will. But going forward, if we can become successful, Benji is actually a tiger. I mean, he really, really, really believes, as all those three coaching staff, by the way, they really believe in the Tigers. And so if he could stay on forever, he'd stay on forever, in my opinion. But he might decide to go around Europe with his wife at one stage and give up football. And that's what you do when you make decisions about your family rather than football. That's a decision he'll make.
You think you'll 100% see out the 3 years? Because if...
There's no 100% I'll see out 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets down to your performance, mate. Everybody understands that. But my plan is for him to see out 3 years plus. And when I'm long gone, he's still there. That's my plan. I think the job of administrators is when you leave a club, they're a better club than when you went there. And I think that having Benji going on after 3 years is something I want. Who takes over from me is something I want, to train and build a team underneath me that becomes a top 4 team across every level. And to me, the head coach is a crucial part of that. And I don't like to think that Benji stood for all the good things about young people in our world. And so I don't have any vision of Benji not being there, but I don't have any vision of me not being there. But at the end of the day, who knows?
What's the biggest challenge? Because you're not the only club that has these top 4 across all levels, aspirations. What's your biggest challenge, and what sets the Tigers apart from those other clubs like your Bulldogs, your Dragons, etc., etc.?
Well, I think we've got some advantages over them. That see, the Bulldogs is landlocked. That's why Phil has to go out and recruit as he does, and I know why he does it. He's got a certain number of juniors, around 3,000, whatever it is. That's not going to get him to greatness, so he has to go out. We're not landlocked. Well, we've got the greatest growth area in the history of Australia going out through the southwest through Cairns. There's 500,000 people going there in the next 10 years. It's a major growth area for commercials. There's a new airport going out there. I mean, there is no restriction of what we can do, and there's no land restriction on what we can do. We have 9,000 juniors, which will grow to 10,000 and more. We'll have more juniors than any other club in the comp. That's something no other club can get and has. So they're great. We've got a great community center. We've got a fantastic financial backer. So there's no. What advantage have we got? The advantage, and we've made really good corporate governance decisions. The advantage we've got is if we strategically plan and get on a journey together, we can get to the end of it. But along the way, you have boards blow up, you have bloody teams blow up, you get captains, coaches, the world. But my experience in clubs is if you set that path and stay with it, you'll get to the end of it. But once you start charging off in all sorts of directions, and then you're gone.
So is that the biggest challenge, staying on the path?
It is, no doubt at all, and not being worried about what people say. What's written on the back page? No, it is. You have to make. I always say to people, and I don't want to be your best friend, and I don't want to, but I want to think to treat you fairly. And it's the same with players. I don't want to be invited to your wedding or your bar mitzvah, I really don't. But I want you to think that, well, Richo actually treated me fairly on the way through, and I think there's a lot of players feel that way. But you can't make friends with everybody. You can't make friends with. A lot of people think that they can get on side with press because they're leaked to them, and then they write good stories, and then all of a sudden things go bad and they write bad. If you're trying to handle it evenly, do you have friends in the media? But my friends in the media are different people. They're different sort of people. They're more away from football people that I'm friends with, probably 2 in particular, Brett Reed and Andrew Webster. But they're different people, you know what I mean? Webby's Webby well, and he's a different cat, and I like that about him. And we talk about a lot of things away from football, more things away from football. And Reedy's an ex-soccer player from Brisbane, so he is.
So he claims.
Yeah, well, he was. He was a good. I saw him play in Brisbane. He was a good player. My point about it all, though, is that's a friendship away. But when you're doing the day-to-day stuff, you've got to try and treat everybody fairly and evenly, and you can't. And mate, people are going to hate you. Richo's this, Richo's that. And then people are going to say, Richo's a good bloke. And it's got nothing to do with that. It's got to do, what job do you do? Where do you take a club? How do you stay on the path? And if you start listening to people bashing you over the heads and trying to create their own, there's all agendas in rugby. There's agendas with the Sydney Morning Herald, there's agendas with the News Limited, there's agendas with Channel 9. But, you've got but they've got their agendas. I got mine. Mine's very simple. This is what we're going to do, and you're not going to knock me off the path of it. And if the only person who's going to knock me off the path of it, the bloke that taps in the shoulder and sacks me. And they haven't done that for 30 years, so I'm going all right at the moment.
Well, maybe not being sacked. I mean, you have an interim position. Speaking to you, it seems like you have ambitions to make this a permanent role. Am I right in thinking that? And if
no, you're right. You're right in thinking that, but
because you sound like you're very much in for the long haul.
Well, I think some of the people that come, but again though, when you start presupposing that you're going to do that, it's like me going in there. I said, I'm not at this stage. I'm not interested in anything permanent. Now all of a sudden, I might have an interest in it, and we may have an interest in it. But mate, the board makes those decisions, not Shane Richardson. So you might say, "Oh, the board probably."
So is that an aspiration?
Yeah, it is, no doubt.
So you're going to pitch to the board,
providing the club is with the way it's going at the moment and running the way it is. I'm more than excited about coming on board. I see it's my last hurrah. We had Richo's last hurrah in rugby league, and if I could take West Tigers to the top, as I've done in clubs in the past, that'd be a great way to finish my career. So it's my career, but and I've got the new one too. I've had 4 years off from South. So to be honest, at the end of the time at South, I'd had enough. Not because I've been doing it for 17 years mostly on, a little bit 12 months off, but I'd sort of got to the stage where I wasn't enjoying going to games. I wasn't enjoying going to work. I wasn't, and it started you could sort of smell it in my way I did, and I'd spent over time setting up times for people to take over for me, Blake, and created that world. And sometimes it's time for the king to step down, the prince to step up, and which I was really happy because I get on great with all of them. I get on great with, despite all the other, great with Russell, great with Nick. It was a good time to go out. Where Richo's not a bad bloke now. He wasn't a great bloke for a while there, but he's not a bad bloke now. So, and then I had 4 years away from him. The first 2 years was stricken by COVID, starting the company up and wondering how we were going to survive. And in the last 2 years, been trying to build that company up to the level it's at today, which I'm really proud of my son and what he's done. But, but then this came along and I'm sitting there at home one day, I'm like, actually, I wouldn't mind having a go at this. I said to Brent, and I said, well, look, it's only going to be interim. And I said, but I don't know, it could be longer, but do you mind, mate? And he said, no, it's time for me to step up too, Dad, and take over things generally. And so, and he's done that, and I'm really proud of him. And so now I've got this new enthusiasm. I actually go to work enjoying myself every morning. I'm thinking about, I wake up in the middle of the night with my tape recorder and tape recorder and do things like I did. I hadn't done that for years and years. So there's a newfound enthusiasm to take this club again from the bottom to the top, doing the things that I know well for community, corporate, and player and football wise, and so and I've got a feeling in this role too, mate. Like it's before, you're always, when you're early days, you're worried about not losing your job because you had the kids to send to school and go through, and then you get to the next stage. You don't want to lose your job because of the prestige of, you don't want to, I don't give a. I'm just doing it because I want to win the premiership, and so at the end of the day. If I actually haven't got the anxiety or the worry. I used to sit there and chew my nails at the games whether we won, lose or draw. I'm still a bit emotional, but not like I was. I don't feel that way anymore. I feel more strategic about what we can do, and hopefully I won't die of a heart attack before I'm 70, which I could have done easily before I was 60, by the way. So that's the world.
Mate, you mentioned the management company that you've built up.
Yep.
Can you just clarify the situation out there? It's incredibly difficult for anybody to understand what is exactly going on. There was a couple of articles and reports around you can't have both roles and some issues in the right. Can you just explain it?
I can explain it easily because
and myself as well.
Yeah, easily. But the company we've got, Rich Digital, which is now called Enrich, we had to change the name with my son taking over and changing marketing around. But we have 4 pillars. The first pillar is digital. We work with companies in digital, a whole range of different companies, and they're working on their digital and social media, etc., which is about 30% of our business. Then we have another consultancy firm, which started off very small, but now we're probably about 35% of our business. Then we have a player IP management, which is we've only got 11 clients. Like, we're hardly the biggest player management group in the world. We have got 11 clients. 6 of those 11 have nothing to do with rugby league. 3 of the other 5 are women. Kelly Cherrington. And what we do with all those clients, though, and Greg's one of them, we work on their life after football. We call the 10 to 30 effect. The 10 years you play and the 30 years you do afterwards. So with that, we manage Ali Day, who's the greatest Ironman athlete in Australia. But we do deals for them. He's got Whoop and a whole lot of overseas. Bandiri Obea, who's qualified for the Olympics in the 400 and 800 metres. We've done deals with her on running. And so we do things for them outside. The contract itself is minimal to us and not really relevant. The only male player of significance we got is Toby Rudolph, who we've done a deal for 3 years with Cronulla. We'll never do it, but we do a lot with Toby on the commercial side. I should remember the underwear suppliers, doing things with him and his IP, building up his social media. See, Kennedy's got 150,000 people on TikTok. She's TikTok's a major sponsor of her. JBL, who dropped Luai, is now the sponsor of Kennedy. So she would get 3 times more money out of us doing her IP than she makes in women's football. 3 times more. And she's a marquee player. But that's our key is IP. It's not the contract. Steve does the contract and does this and does, but really the contracts are mine. I can tell you what. Toby's contract was easy because I knew what he was worth, and if you don't put this number in front of it, we're not going to do it. That was easy. But promoting, he's really different. Toby, I love him. He's really strong on social media, paints his nails, talks openly about bisexuality with things like that. I love that. That sells businesses. So that's that business. So to talk, and we've got 3 young players. One is Max Lehman, who works for us. We had him a 16-week trial, and he plays for Eastern Brisbane. And I got him a contract to play at Eastern Brisbane last year because I'm a consultant to Eastern Brisbane. And when I was up there, his mate said, "Oh, Richo, can you manage me?" And I said, "Mate, not really, because I don't think you're ever going to be any great player." He said, No. I've got him a contract with Wakefield. He's playing for Wakefield in England for 2 years. And the third one was Solomon Fatapo, who was the inside centre with Max Lehman on the outside. He said, "Richo," his dad came to him and said, "Richo, would you mind taking over my son?" I said, "Oh, mate, really?" And I said, "Yeah, okay, we do." And I shopped him round at the end of the year. I couldn't get him starts anywhere. And then when I got over there, I'd already shopped him to West Tigers, and they'd said no. And then so I said, righto. And I said, we were talking about filling up underneath. I said, "Look, have you had a look at this tape of this kid, to Benji and Matt?" And I said, "No." Well, no. And Benji said, "No, I hadn't." So I gave it to Benji, no matter what anybody else thought, that's what happened. And if Benji had said, "No, he's no good, he's not good enough," and which he's done to another player, if he's not good enough, I would know. He said, "Yep, we've got to get him there now." Now he's come down, he's only on what do you call it? The development contract. 80 grand a year. It's not as I went down and said, we're going to give him 150 because I'm managing him. It was just what he did. And he played first grade last weekend. So it wasn't a bad call by Benji, not by me, by Benji. And then the fourth part is what we call our purpose side, where we run the Goanna Academy. We call it purpose because we want to do things that are worthwhile with Michelle Heyman, with Greg Inglis, where they want to do things that make them in their career that makes them feel that there's something worthwhile to they're doing. We're doing a similar thing with Ali Day. Toby's really keen on it. Our women's stars are Kennedy Cherrington's hugely keen on it. And that's a really huge market for us. And that's probably 30% of our market too. So player management's about 5 to 10%, and we've only got 11 of them. There's 11 people. So it's not. So when they come out and say, and when I signed the contract I said, "I'm not giving up Rich Digital. I'm not going to do that."
So you're staying on board? No.
And when I came in there, I said, "I'm not giving up Rich Digital until I find out what's going on. So I'll do a contract as a contractor to you for the 6 months to work it out, set it all down, do all the things for you like any contractor would. I'd take over as interim CEO, do all that, but I'm not guaranteeing I could ever stay on. And at the time, I didn't think I would. I thought I'd get there and set it up. Then I got in there, got to know everybody and everything else. And then and if I go forward, it'll have nothing to do with it'll be me going forward. But it's Rich Digital at the moment because they contracted our firm to be a consultant to fix the situation up. Now, going forward, there's no way you can be the CEO for the next X number of years. I'd have to do it my own right, and they know that. And I'd have to step away from Rich Digital. I can't step away from being co-founder because it's a bit hard to do that when you're a co-founder. But the day-to-day running and operation of it, I'll have nothing to do with.
Well, it's not Rich Digital anymore, is it?
It's Enriched.
Enriched. Stop calling it the wrong name.
And we consult the South Sydney, New South Wales Rugby League, Central Coast Mariners, Eastern Brisbane, the NRL. That's what Enriched does. But no one's called us up on that.
That's it. That's an interesting point.
We consult all of them. All of them.
What sort of consulting role do you do?
Well,
for
we did the thing with New South Wales Rugby League with how they're putting up on their televising games, and so we did all the work around that and setting that up with them. And they're just extending us for another 12 months. With South, we do all the digital work and work with them on how we do further stuff to promote the digital side of their operation. Central Coast Mariners, we set up on side with the Mariners, which is their community program, and doing stuff with them. And Eastern Brisbane, we did a football consultancy. We did the setting up of their charity, which is of their community program, which is called Rising, East Rising. We do stuff with their football team. They hadn't won a premiership since 1993 when John Lang and I were there. We won it last year. I mean, those are advising with football. Matt Church, the coach, we ring each other. But they're consultancy things about... They're not. I'm not employed by them. They employ the company as a consultancy, and that's what West Tigers did. They've employed me as a consultant for the 6 months to set this up. If I go forward, then I'll have to do it my own right.
Yes. Okay. So I think I understand now. So West Tigers have appointed Rich Digital.
Correct.
Oh, sorry. What are they called again?
Enriched without an E. Enriched without an E.
West Tigers have been approached. Enriched to come in and do this, and one of their players happens to be, a branch of Enriched happens to be player management, who's a player who is now
11 of them. There is 11 athletes. You can go to the website and see the 11 of them, and the only 2 players, we don't manage Adam Reynolds. We manage his IP. Any business we get for him, we do. It's same as everybody else. If we get a deal for him, we get 20% of the deal. Yeah. There's no upfront fees or anything like that at all. Toby Rudolph we manage, but we've done the deal with him for 3 years, and we deal his IP. We work with that. Kennedy Cherrington, but there's no other, bar these 3 young blokes I just talked about, we don't have any other male athletes.
Yeah, well, in all things that happen in rugby league, I think that's not the top of the priority list to investigate. You mentioned some of the similarities between the West Tigers, South Sydney. What have you made of the current situation there? I've got to ask you while I've got you on there.
Yeah, look. You know, what do I make of the situation? I mean, the signs were challenges were there from last year, and to be fair, they knew the challenges were there and they reviewed the challenges and et cetera, et cetera. I don't really want to comment on it because I spoke to the club, both Blake and Jason last year, about the challenges at the end of the year, et cetera, and I don't want to divulge those confidentialities. But, it's become like a, my I'll be honest and upfront, my bottom line is I think Latrell's an incredibly good human being. I think he's got to understand clearly I'm a great supporter of Indigenous rights, always have been, in my career with David Peachey through Preston Campbell to Greg Inglis. But at the end of the day, sometimes you're in a team environment where the team has to come first. And what I'm saying to you is that the more comments he makes doesn't necessarily help the situation on racism. I had to deal with Greg one when they abused him at Penrith. It was disgraceful what they called him that night at Penrith. Greg handled it in a different way with great humility. We found it, got the person banned, we found it had training, all those sort of things. But Greg in the background was really upset, but didn't. My point about it is I just think from Latrell's point of view, he's a leader in that team, He can have his own views, and I understand I'm being concerned. But I've always felt that, you have to put the team first. If your family's if there's something really bad going on to you personally, you've got a right to talk, but it didn't happen to him personally. And I felt whereas he could be supportive of Mam, as Greg was. Greg rang Mam up and spoke to him, off, not telling anybody, just talk about it because he'd been through it. You know what I mean? I just feel that it has an effect of breaking down the fabric of the team when you do that. And at the end of the day, it's about his football and the team winning. And I think also, I don't think in any way, shape or form, in my opinion, going to Las Vegas was good for a club like South who finished the season the way they did. They needed to have a really good, strong off-season. let's be honest, going to Las Vegas, you have one trial before you go over there. You go over there for 2 weeks living. And one of the things that we spoke about last year is the amount of time at South spent in hotels.
Yeah.
I'm not at home last year. So what do? We start the season off going 2 weeks to Las Vegas and living in hotels. You know, away from family, away from all this, all the hype, then you have to come back, and then you lose your first 2 games. So the ideal preparation for that season start, like last year was disrupted because of the World Cup, I think it was, and so players didn't come back till late. This year it's been disrupted by Las Vegas, and South didn't need that, particularly when they lost key players in Arrow and Campbell Graham. But that's my opinion on the situation, and I'm sure they may look at it differently from now. I'll finish it by saying this though. Blake Solly is an outstanding CEO. He's probably having the first time with the blowtorch on him at the moment, but he'll come through the other side. I really believe that, and I trust that he will do that. Jason Demetrio is a really, really good coach, and this is the first time he's had the blowtorch on. It's a bit like I talked about with Benji and that sort of thing. Now's the time to galvanise together, not insulate yourself and they're all bastards outside or anything like that. And we're certainly not doing that West Tigers despite what people say. But you can still control the narrative. And the narrative's got to be controlled internally. You've got to control what you're doing, not shut things off. But I honestly believe that in Jason and particularly, not particularly, but in Blake Solly, they got the team to do that. But, mate, this is 30 years. There's been there's been there. You're the best, you're the worst, you're in between.
Peaks and troughs.
The blowtorch is out. Now, the good thing about it is the blowtorch is not as much on us, so that's always a positive in rugby league.
With the Latrell Mitchell interview after the Brisbane game last week, as a club CEO, what do you do?
I've been against these interviews after the game for a long, long while.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, I know it's great for the media and you've got to grab them. You never used to do that. In fact, you couldn't even get... Now, if you go and grab Damien Cook, and I know Latrell's so cool, he's 25-year-old though, and a very highly emotional person, Latrell. You go and grab him in an interview and he drops F-bombs, he shouldn't do it, and afterwards he'd probably think about it and wouldn't do it again. But you can't then... be scathing that it's part of his character and he's like that. He's nothing like that as a person. I know him well. But he got emotional on the night, he dropped it, and then you want to sit there and critique it afterwards. Well, all I'm saying is you want to put the microphone in his mouth, you're the challenge.
So it's just part of the dance. So you as an administrator would have, it's nothing to see here, it's just Latrell being...
Absolutely. Nothing to do.
So, but would you come out on the front foot and say, look, Latrell has swore, and that's who he is, and just get on with it?
I wouldn't say that's who he is. I'd come out in the foot and said, look, he was emotional after the game. He probably regrets it a bit, saying some of the things he did, but he did it. And it's not his fault he did it. He got a microphone shoved in his mouth. He was emotional and he said what he did. Let's move on.
I guess that's part of rugby league now, and there's been no... The argument would be there's been no other examples of that that I can think of.
Well, I can think of a couple, but not 5.
Yeah.
Not 5 in a row.
But so you as an administrator would be... Look, it's fine.
Look into what? I wouldn't say it's fine. I'd certainly sit down with Latrell.
So this is where I'm going.
Mate, I'd certainly sit down with Latrell and say, look, mate, just be very careful afterwards. If you don't want to do the interview, don't do it.
Just say no.
If you feel really, just put the hand up and say no. You've got every right to do that. You're not compelled to do it. So you do that. And mate, and I'd sort of talk to him and say, surely you can see that that's not the correct way of doing it. And he'd probably say, yeah. So mate, all I'm saying to you going forward, if you feel so emotional, you don't want to say it, put the hand up and don't say it, because that's better than doing it. And secondly, if you do it, it's a mea culpa. I did it. I made a mistake. I'm sorry, and move on. That's what I do. But, mate, Latrell's Latrell and Blake's Blake, and I don't want to tell them how to run. I could have the same thing worse off, but that's the way I'd handle it if it was going on. Yeah. Because he's a good person, Latrell. He is a good person.
I don't doubt that 1 second. And I'm that
passionate. You're one of those guys.
I'm a nut job. I'm a passionate nut job that says thing in the moment. Like...
You got better, but...
It's interesting you say that, because we talked about it today on the show and about how one particular incident against South Sydney changed who I was fundamentally and changed my approach. And I don't know if I was ever the same player because of that. And it's an interesting predicament that Souths are in my opinion, around like how much do you want him to change? But anyway, I know you're tight for time, Richo. Just quickly before we go, Lee Hadjipantelis obviously involved with Brydens lawyers. How's that relationship with everything?
I went out and met Lee for about an hour and a half. he's not happy with some of the people in the club. He certainly made it clear that he wasn't dirty on me or anything like, and he did. We spoke about his sponsorship. He's keen to go on. He's got an option to be the major sponsor next year, which he pointed out to me. So he certainly haven't ruled that out. My sales manager and my sales guy took him to lunch yesterday. I had a lunch with him and talked about him. I asked him to come to the game on Saturday night. I think he feels that there'll be a bit of animosity towards him. I said, well, mate, you can sit with me, and I meant it. And because I look, mate, Lee Hadjiman tell us is this guy. Whether we talk about corporate government, but sometimes the trouble with rugby league, mate, is you're such a passionate fan. The passion sometimes overrides what you know is right or wrong. And mate, he's still a passionate fan. He still loves the club. There's people in the club he doesn't love. But, mate, I've been there before. Football clubs are no different. But people stabbing people in the back at St Helens. They've been stabbing people in the back at Eastern Brisbane. People have been, I mean, this... It's just whether you get stabbed in the back. I just prefer people to stab me in the front. I've been stabbed in the front a lot of times. But at the end of the day, Lee's really mad. He's put a lot of money into the club. He's a supporter of the club. I'd like to think he's stuck with the club over the period of time. But at the end of the day, all those decisions are for Lee. But I wanted to make it clear to Lee that I certainly had no animosity about it at all. Our sales team have no animosity about it at all. He's a major sponsor. And despite what's happened, it'll be fish and chip paper over the next, and that's what they don't realise. Everybody thinks because it's rugby league and all that it's going to last forever. And mate, honestly, it is fish and chip paper. It's so quickly, and it won't be long for 12 months' time, and they won't even recognise Lee. Except probably when he drives up in his Bentley, you'll probably get an idea of he's there. But look, he's just a really passionate fan. Did he do the right thing or not? That's not up for me to say. All I know is that I've made the point from the first go that corporate governance is crucial in what you're doing. But as a person, and he puts a lot of money into rugby league. He sponsors a lot of junior clubs and amateur clubs, and he does because he actually has a passion for it. I never want that passion taken away from the game, but it's just an unfortunate part of the history. But again, though, mate, I'm like everything else. I don't want to look back on what this was. I want to look forward about what we can do with Lee in the future if we can, what we can do with the team in the future, what we can do to change the way people think about the club. Because once you look back, mate, and I had this whole challenge with South, with George and all the dramas and everything else. It was the hardest thing in my life when we had to go against George and with Russell and that. And, it was terrible for a long period of time because a lot of those old great players wouldn't talk to me, But it was the best thing for the club. And all I'm trying to do is the best thing for the club. And, and eventually they come around because they understand that you're actually doing it for the right reasons. But at the time, there's so much emotion involved, and there could have been no more emotion than having to take George away from the club in the administrative role. That was the biggest thing of all, and he was a hero of mine. And I had to tell him face to face in my office, and then I wasn't sure what was going to happen because he was so but he loved the club to death. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, I come in from outside at South and outside at West Tigers. I'm not steeped in the history and who have they got this, and I'm steeped in this is what I know works. If you do these things, it'll work, and if you don't do these things, you'll be a failure. And so I come in from that view. So I don't feel any grudges. I never wanted a grudge against George, and I certainly don't want a grudge with or an argument with Lee because I think he's been a great supporter of the club for a long, long time.
Finally, the Firehawks.
Yep.
Is that completely over for you now? Or?
Oh, well, it's completely over in the sense that I'm running a club. But at the end of the day, mate, East is I think people got to realise with East in Brisbane, this is my old club. Played, coached, managed, president.
I forget that. So I remember you saying. I remember you saying
there. So it's not some club from the. And I'm so proud of it as a club with the great Desi Morris and Johnny Lang and all those great players. And I'm steeped in the club's history, as president and otherwise. And before I came to Cronulla. So the answer to that is I'll never give up fighting for the top Firehawks being the 18th team. There's no way in the world. And there's no way in the world that you can put Papua New Guinea in. No way in the world is the 18th team. Maybe 19th or 20th. And East, as you know, was originally about partnering with them to come in to give them time to be able to assimilate into the NRL competition. But, they're my club. That's my junior. That's where I grew up. That's my team. That's my passion. We train there all the time. It's a great club and a great ground, so I'll never give that up.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you.
A bit like telling you to be a life member of St Helens. I don't think you can do that.
Never. No. And there's certain teams I'll just never support. Watching Wigan play Penrith in the World Cup Challenge was beyond difficult for me because I wanted the British game to win, but I didn't want Wigan to win. I was going to ask about what a successful tenure looks like, but you spoke about that in terms of rings. Richo, I just want to say thank you on behalf of everyone here at the Buy Round for coming in, giving up your time, sharing your story. Look, success leaves clues, and you know about those clues. You've been part of some magnificent rebuilds. You speak passionately about that one in particular at South Sydney. There's a lot of similarities, and I genuinely wish you all the best because I know you're fighting for, like you say, the club comes first. So all the best, and look forward to seeing the peaks and troughs of everything with West Tigers over the next coming months, weeks, and years. So
just remember this one thing: win, lose, or draw, your family are always going to be there.